All right, so I finished up making all of the pages for my 2026 bullet journal. I like to have them all done before the year starts, so I can just spend the year filling out my bullet journal. I haven't filled out the list for all of them yet, but doing it beforehand also allows me to organize all my pages into the same section, which is something that I really enjoy doing. So I just wanted to kind of walk you through the different pages that I have in my bullet journal. All right, so this one is my very first page, and it's the notes page for my 2027 bullet journal. And this is like if I have any ideas during the year of things that I want to change, or if there's a new release that I see that is going to come out in 2027, things like that, I can write down here for when I'm making my 2027 bullet journal. And this is my calendar overview page. And so I write big events in this box, like birthdays or holidays, trips that we have planned, anything like that can go in here. And this is also, you can see each color on each month here. Throughout the rest of my bullet journal, that color corresponds with that month. So if I write a book name in this blue pen color, then it means that I read that book in January. And I color in with the colored pencil as well, and that also means that I did it in that month. That's how I keep track of that. My book log page, I start in this corner right here, or in this square right here. I write the page number, and then next to it I write the book name, and underneath that the author. And then over here I write how many stars I gave it and the date that I finished it. And I number them along here in the color that I read it in that month. And I left plenty of pages. I don't always use up all of these pages. I'd rather have a few extra blank pages than run out of space. And then, because I have run out of space before, so this is my stats page, and I actually redid it this year. So over here, these boxes here, these things are for tally marks. And so like under female authors, as I finish a book, if it was by a female author, I'll put a blue tally mark after recording it over here in my book log. And then at the end of the month over here, I can put the number of tallies so that I can easily see how many of each thing that I read during the month, just at a glance without having to count up all the tally marks. Before, I had the tally marks here and the genres on this page, and then I had boxes on this page to write down how many tally marks for each month. And I'd have to flip between the two pages every single month as I was trying to tally them up, and I just got really tired of it and had the idea to combine them together and put the genres on a different page. And I actually really like the way it turned out. I think it looks very nerdy and orderly, and I just really appreciate the way that it looks. And then on this side I have genres, and then these boxes are for the tally marks. So I tally up as I read books. I put the tally here, and then at the end of the month I can record, I guess, how many tally marks in each genre. I don't keep track of subgenres, just the genres. And then this can be for the year too. These boxes down here, I can add them all up at the end of the year. And then here is my visual reading tracker, and I just color in however many books I read that month in that color. And then my goal is always 180, but I leave plenty of extra in case I read more, because it's just really satisfying to color it in after I've read it, and I don't want to run out and not have some of the books that I've read. And so I just leave plenty of extra. I don't expect to read 360 books next year. I expect it to be closer to 180, but this way I just have plenty of room. And then over here is my 2026 TBR list, and I have a huge TBR list thanks to like Instagram and YouTube and everything, I have a huge TBR list on Goodreads. And this is just a way for me to go through and say, okay, these are the ones that I want to read the most, or these are the ones that I want to prioritize and read next. And I pick 33 because that is 3 a month minus December, when I'm usually more focused on Christmas and not reading as much, and also wanting to read more Christmassy books. So I write the book, and then the author, and then the genre, and then or actually here I write if it's YA, middle grade, or adult, and then the genre here. And I try and get a good mix of YA, middle grade, and adult, and I also try and get a good mix of genres, because I do like to read across a variety, but there are some genres that I tend to prioritize over others if I just naturally read, and so I like to make sure I have, like, I might put a sci-fi on here, because sci-fi is not what I usually read, and that way I'm still exploring the sci-fi genre. And then over here are just some classics that I haven't read yet that I want to read. And then I just pick like maybe 2 or 3 throughout the year to read. And then over here are classics that I've loved reading that I would love to revisit, and I might again pick 1 or 2, and that way I have some classics throughout the year that I can prioritize as well throughout the year. Then here are just books that I want to reread that I just loved enough to revisit. And again, they're not ones that I'm not going to reread all of these this year. It's just ones on my radar. And then over here, I call it Rereadathon because at one point there was a Rereadathon on YouTube, and it's just a good way for me to visualize what this is, because I don't think they have that anymore. But I just pick 1 book per month here from these books over here to try and reread, because I tend to love the books that I reread, and that way I am guaranteed at least some books throughout the year that I just absolutely love, and it can kind of help keep me from getting into reading slumps and things like that. And then here's my series spread, and over here are series that I've started that I would like to finish, and then down here I have a space for series that I'm not ready to say that I've officially quit the series, but they're also, I might want to read more in them, and so it's just a way to keep track of those. And then over here are series that I have started, but the author hasn't actually finished writing the series yet, so I can't finish reading it until they finish it. And then over here are series that I would like to start that I haven't actually read any books out of yet. And then here is my new release spread. It's pretty self-explanatory. I include books that were released in 2025 and 2026. And over here I just write when they're going to be released, so I can and I'll write that month in the color, like I'll write October in orange, and that way at a glance I can be like, oh, this one hasn't released yet. Are there any new releases in March or earlier that I want to read? And then here's our homeschool read alouds. I also include books that we listen to as a family here, and books that I read aloud to the kids both at night and during our homeschool hours. And I try and pick at least 1 a month to focus on. And so you can see like blue for January, pink for February, green for March. And I usually get like between 5 and 7 books of these I actually end up reading with the kids, but sometimes during the year they might want to read certain books, or they might get going on a series. For example, they wanted to read the Babysitter's Club books at night because their cousins were reading them, and then I told them I'd read the first one, and then they talked me into reading the first 4, and then they talked me into reading the first 6. And so a lot of the books that I had planned, we didn't end up reading in the fall because we were reading those. But then it was fine because we just really enjoyed reading the Babysitter's Club books together. And then I left a lot of space here because there are a lot of books that I would love to read with my kids. It's really hard to narrow down which ones to read with them. All right, here is my page for authors that I have read a book previously by, or maybe some books previously by, that I know that I want to read more of their books, but maybe I'm not ready to commit to reading all of their books, and I just write their name in this box, and then just fill out a square every time I read one of their books. And then here is a spread for authors that I have just loved and have decided that I want to try and read all of their books. And you can see I'm getting really close with Agatha Christie. So the colored in ones are ones that I have already read before the year started, and the blank ones I haven't. And I've been reading at least one Agatha Christie book a month for several years now, and I'm getting really close to finishing. Although when I finish, I'll probably just start rereading her books because I love Agatha Christie. I've really grown to love a lot of her books, and I don't want to stop reading one every month. It's been really fun to read about one a month. And then just other authors that I have really enjoyed that I want to read all of their books. And I'm not trying to read all of these authors this year, but I do make progress on some. Like I've been working on Jennifer Nielsen for several years now. Sharon Creech, I might read one or two books a year. And then eventually, and then there's some that like they don't have as many, so I might try and finish those up. Or some that I've been working on for longer, like I could read more books by Jennifer Nielsen this year and finish her up, and then add some from my more authors or a new author that I discover onto this spread next year. So like this year, Jessie Q. Sutanto and Colleen Cambridge are both new. Abby Emmons, those were on my spread last year. And this is my author collection page, and I'll just write any of the authors that I have read all of their books I can put into these stars. And if they have a new release and I read it, then I just put a line through the star in the color of the month that I read it in. And if I reread one of their books, then I can put a dot on the outside of the star to kind of keep track of that. And then I've actually been thinking about adding a new page to my bullet journal of like an author collection retirement page where I put authors that I had read all of their books, but for whatever reason, I don't want to keep up on their new releases. So like, for example, there was an author that I loved that was in my author collection she used to write closed door romances. Now she writes open door romances. So I'm no longer keeping up with her new releases. So I had read all of her books because I loved them, but now I haven't, and so I could retire her. Or there are a couple authors that I had on the author collection that I just am kind of tired of reading their books and don't really want to read their new releases, and so I could just retire them and not feel like I have to keep up on their books to keep them in my author collection. And here is my Agatha Christie page, and this spells out Agatha Christie is just kind of jumbled up, and these are magnifying glasses, and the magnifying glass of the color is the month. So like blue I'd read in January, pink February, and I just choose one book a month. A really fun way to read one Agatha Christie book a month is to go onto her website, and they have a reading challenge every year where they give prompts, and they choose one book that goes along with that prompt that is the main book, and then they also have like kind of runner-up books that also fit under that prompt. And I really like using their prompts to pick an Agatha Christie book to read each month. And here's my Middle Grade March spread. Middle Grade March is a readathon or reading challenge on YouTube that I have participated in every year for several years now. And to participate, all you have to do is read a middle grade book. And the more middle grade books, the better. They give out prompts on YouTube for Middle Grade March every year. And so and they pick a group read. And so I just put the group read and the prompts in these clovers here. And then I can color the clovers when I've read that book. And I really like Middle Grade March. And then here is my Little House on the Prairie spread. I did this last year because I wanted to read all of the books because I hadn't read most of them since I was a little girl. And I absolutely loved reading through all of them. I actually have a printable that I made online that you could print off that looks similar to this. This doesn't include the first 4 years, but because I'm not going to read that this year with my kids. I included this year because I want to reread all of these with my kids because I think that they would love them. We read the first Anne of Green Gables book last year and loved it, and we've read a few of these together. Like we read Little House in the Big Woods quite a while ago. We recently read Little House on the Prairie, and I just think it would be fun to visit all of them with my kids. And I'll link the printable down below in case you're interested. And then here is my Anne of Green Gables spread. So this year on my own, not with my kids, I would like to read all of the books. I know I've read Anne of Green Gables and Anne of Avonlea when I was growing up. And I think I've read Anne's House of Dreams when I was growing up, but I can't remember. And maybe one other one as an adult. But I want to read all of them in order this year. Because when I was rereading Anne of Green Gables with my kids this year and we watched the movie together too, I just remembered how much I just love the book. It's just such a good book, and I want to have read all of them. My mother-in-law loves all of them, and so I'm really excited to read them all. And then sometimes I participate in Jane Austen July and read at least one book that is a Jane Austen book or a retelling of it or something. I might do a retelling. I might pick a retelling and then one or two Jane Austen books to read this year. My husband and I have been watching some of the Jane Austen movies with my oldest, and she's really liked them, which is fun. And so I've been having that itch to reread the books. This page is new this year, so every year my kids and I do a countdown to Christmas where we unwrap a children's book that we already owned, and we read it together and then do kind of a corresponding activity, like we might unwrap the Polar Express, and then I do a Polar Express party where we watch the movie and make hot chocolate in our pajamas or something, and I have a whole list of activities that we do, and down here I'll put the book name and activity, and then as we do them I will color in the square at Christmas time. And then here's 30 books in 30 days and Series September. Both of these are some of my favorite readathons or reading challenges from YouTube to do in September every year. And this one is you just pick 30 books or short stories or novellas or anything like that, and try and read 30 of them in the month, which is challenging but really fun. And then this one is just you read books that are parts of series, and they usually give prompts for each of these bingo boards, and they have a whole bingo board. So I'll write the prompt and the book name here, and then once I finish reading that book, I color in the square as kind of a bingo type thing. Now this is my nonfiction page, and I call it Nonfiction November just because that's the reading challenge name online, but I actually have found that it works better for me to try and read one nonfiction book a month-ish and not try and get them all in November, because November I'm usually really trying to finish up some of my reading goals before December hits, so I can focus on Christmas reads in December. And so that's kind of what I do, even though I call it Nonfiction November. And then here's just a place where I can keep track of different nonfiction books by category that I really want to read. And then so I can pick books from here for my monthly reading. And then here's a category for nonfiction books that I really want to reread or revisit, usually self-help books or parenting books that I have felt were really useful. And this is my books to buy, or like anything to do with money or borrowing books, buying books, giving books away. My cover page for it, I don't know how it got these two things on it. It drove me crazy. But yeah. Here's my library catalog. So I write the library book name here. I put if it's physical, ebook, or audiobook here, the due date here, and then when I read it, I just color in this square right here. And I have 2 pages for that because I tend to borrow quite a few books now that I can borrow ebooks and audiobooks too. I discovered that during COVID, one good thing to come out of COVID. And then here is my books to buy shelf. So any books that I want to buy, I just put the title in here, and if I buy them, then I color the book in, and I have a lot of books that I want to buy. And then here, this page, I leave these ones blank so that during the year, if I buy any books that weren't already on my list, I can put them in here. And then down here, this is just on the top, I keep track of how much money I had budgeted to spend on books, and on the bottom, how much I actually spent on books. And then this page is just a place for me to write down the titles of the books that I bought, in a place where there's a little bit more room than the little tiny books on my shelf, just so it's easier for me to tell what books I bought, and also so I can just see them all in one place and don't have to flip through all the shelves. And then this is a place for me to write down all of the children's books that I bought. We buy a lot of children's books because I love collecting children's books, and my kids all love to read, and I love sharing that with them. And then if I donate or get rid of any books, I can write those down here. And then on this page, I love giving away books. It's one of my favorite things to gift books to people. And so here's just a place where I can keep track of if I do that, if we have the budget for it and everything, and what book I've given them. And then here is just a stats page for buying books. I do tally marks here, and then at the very end of the year, I write down how many total here. Here is a graph, a bar graph for the number of physical books that I bought each month, so I can kind of see at a glance which months I bought the most books. Here I keep track of tally marks, the physical books I bought if they were hardcover or paperback, and then at the end of the year I can write down the number in this box. And this is just like a pie graph or a pie chart, whatever you want to call it, for that information. And then here's a title page for like movies and things. So here is just a place for me to put our favorite family movies that we like to watch. We try not to have a streaming service most of the time and just use DVDs that we buy at thrift stores or on eBay, or for presents for our kids. Sometimes, like for Easter this year, all of the kids got a DVD that they wanted. And we also love to use the library's DVDs, and so it's really helpful for me to have kind of a list of some of our favorites, and then I can color this in if we end up watching it that month. And then this used to say movies with Ashton, because when she turned 10, she started watching movies once a week with my husband and I after the kids were in bed, kind of movies that were older. Like we've watched Lord of the Rings and Lost in Space. We've watched even like National Treasure, which is a little harder for younger kids to follow or not as interesting, but she really enjoyed it. And so I changed it with Mom and Dad because our second born is going to be turning 10 this year and starting to do movies and TV shows with us. And so this is just a place that I can keep track of ideas that I want to watch with them, or also just write down the ones that we do watch and color it in. And this is one of my favorite pages that I make now. And then here is a place for me to write down our favorite Halloween and Thanksgiving movies and our favorite Christmas movies. I am huge into holidays and theming everything around holidays, and I love watching holiday shows with our kids. And then here is a place for me to put down any movies that my husband and I want to watch together, with the actor that made us want to watch it or what genre it is, and then we can write down when we watched it. And then here is a cover page for the writing my writing pages. So I love to write novels. I've written 2 complete novels, and I'd love to write more as I have a little more margin in my life after having our 5th baby. And so this is just a page where I can keep track of the novels that I have written. And then here is a place to keep track of like non-fiction projects that I'm working on and how much writing I've done towards that, weekly and then monthly. And then here is a place to keep track of how many personal blog posts I've done and how many blog posts I've done on my Bookish blog. And then a place to keep track of our writing group that I am part of, if we meet and if I've submitted. And then here is a page to keep track of my novel writing. I write down the word count that I've done each week throughout the year. And then over here is kind of a monthly tracker where I write down what project I'm currently working on, what my goal is, and how far into my project I am percentage-wise at the end of the month. This page is for me to write down quotes from books that I've really liked that I've read this year. And this is a page for me to write down quotes for writing quotes that are inspirational that will help me to actually sit down and write. And then here is just this is no longer writing. Now we're moving on from my writing stuff. So this is just a stats page for the end of the year so I can kind of see my year at a glance. And I use my stats page at the beginning to kind of add everything up. In this page, I pick 3 books each month that are my favorites, and then I pick 10 books at the end of the year kind of from this list. I never include rereads on this list, but I do have a bonus on this side where I can pick my favorite reread. And then this is just kind of for fun for me. It's like a book bracket where I pick one a month that is my top favorite, and then I kind of have them compete so I can kind of see what ends up as my favorite book of the year. And then here is my calendar. Calendars pages for the year each month. So I have this page first where I can write down some goals that I have for the month, some things I need to do, whether those are related to my goals or not, and some different events that are kind of happening throughout the month. Like in this one, I'll write, my husband's birthday, which is circled right here, because that's kind of a big deal. And then my calendar page, I have a spot on the sides where I can write down ideas for blog posts and Instagram posts. I'd really like to be more active on Instagram and my blog this year and see if I can figure out something that will work with that, because I feel like I've never quite figured out something that works with it. But I'd like to, because it's easier for me to do Instagram and a blog than it is to do YouTube with 5 kids. And then in the top, this little top square, I can write down any blog posts and color it in, or Instagram posts and color it in. And then the squares, I write down blog posts or YouTube videos and color those in. And then I have my TBR. I have my 10 that I want to prioritize the most, and then 5 extra. I always write those in erasable pen, and then if I change my mind during the month, I can just erase that. And then once I start reading a book, I color it in blue. If I end up DNFing it after starting reading it, I color it in dark. And if I finish reading it, I color it in light. And then at the end of the month, I can write how many I DNF'd of those, and how many I read of my very loose TBR. And then over here, I just write down all of the books that I own that I haven't read yet, ebooks, audiobooks, and hard copy. I try to keep them down to this number, although it's getting harder to do that because, especially with ebooks, because they have such good sales on those. And then I just have those same pages for every single month throughout the year, all the way to December. So yeah, that is my bullet journal. I am really excited for 2026, for all the reading and writing and everything that we're going to do in 2026, and I'm really happy with how most of my pages turned out and how my Bookish bullet journal is coming. So I would love to hear from you if you have a bullet journal, or how you keep track of books. Do you use Goodreads? Do you have a physical planner? Do you do bullet journals? Love to hear from you in the comments below, and we can chat. And I'll catch you in my next video.